Welcome to Rise Untold, where the stories behind the spotlight come alive. He was Boston's dark shadow, a man who rose from the streets to control an empire built on fear. And in the end, James Whitey Bulger's death was as violent and unforgiving as the life he lived. October 30th, 2018. A maximum security prison in Hazelton, West Virginia. Guards begin their morning rounds, but inside one cell block, silence hangs heavier than usual. Slumped in a wheelchair, beaten beyond recognition, lies the broken body of Whitey Bulger. He is 89 years old. His reign is over. But this was no ordinary prison killing. It was a reckoning decades in the making. James Joseph Bulger Jr. was born in 1929 in South Boston, known as Southie. Growing up in poverty, surrounded by working-class Irish immigrants, crime offered a kind of power that money never could. As a boy, Bulger got the nickname Whitey because of his light blonde hair, a name he always hated. But that boy would grow into the man who ruled Boston's streets. In the 1950s, Bulger was already in and out of prison for bank robberies and armed assaults. He spent 9 years locked up, even enduring human experiments at Alcatraz where inmates were dosed with LSD. When he walked free, he was harder, colder, and ready to claim his city. By the 1970s, Bulger was the undisputed boss of the Winter Hill Gang. Drugs, extortion, loan sharking, murder, nothing in Boston happened without his blessing. But behind the image of a ruthless mob boss was a secret so dangerous it would one day seal his fate. In 1975, Bulger struck a deal with the FBI. His handler was John Connolly, a childhood neighbor from South Boston. Connolly promised protection. In exchange, Bulger fed him inside information on rival gangs, especially Boston's Italian mafia. To the FBI, it looked like a golden partnership. To the underworld, it was unforgivable. This deal gave Bulger near-total immunity. While Connolly filed reports, Bulger carried out killings, drug deals, and even shipped weapons overseas. He helped funnel arms to the Irish Republican Army during the Troubles, making him not just a gangster, but a player in international conflict. But every empire has cracks. And when the whispers started that Whitey Bulger was a snitch, his image as Boston's untouchable gangster began to rot. Kevin Weeks, once his closest lieutenant, said in shock years later, "I don't understand because he's not the same as I remember him. I can't believe he was so chatty right now. I don't know what he was doing." In the criminal code, there is no greater betrayal. When federal indictments came down in the mid-1990s, Bulger vanished. For 16 years, he was one of America's most wanted fugitives. Rumors placed him everywhere: Europe, Canada, even Ireland. In reality, he was hiding in plain sight in Santa Monica, California, with his longtime girlfriend. In 2011, at the age of 81, the myth came crashing down. Arrested, tried, and convicted, Bulger was found guilty of 11 murders and countless other crimes. He was sentenced to life in prison. For the families of his victims, it was justice. For Bulger, it was just another cage. But prison has its own rules. And in that world, Bulger was not a feared mob boss. He was a rat. When he was transferred to Hazelton Prison on October 29, 2018, many believed it was a death sentence. Among the inmates was Fotios, Freddy, Geas, a hitman notorious for his hatred of informants. Alongside Paul J. DiColagero and Sean McKinnon, Geas was waiting. Just one day after Bulger's arrival, they struck. With a padlock stuffed into a sock, they beat him so brutally that his eyes and tongue were destroyed. An insider later said, "They tuned him up to the point where he was unrecognizable." At 8:20 a.m., guards discovered him slumped, lifeless in his wheelchair. The crime boss who once terrorized Boston had been reduced to nothing more than another prison statistic. For years, investigators asked how it was even possible. How could the Bureau of Prisons place such a high-profile informant in the path of men who hated snitches? Former Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis admitted, "I'm not surprised that he got hit. I'm surprised that they let him get hit." In 2022, charges were brought against Geas, DeCollegiero, and McKinnon. By May 2024, plea deals were in place, and on September 6th, Freddy Geas was sentenced to 25 years for voluntary manslaughter. For many, it was fitting. Whitey Bulger had lived by a code of violence and betrayal, and in the end, he was destroyed by that very code. To some, Bulger's story is about ambition, a poor kid from Southie who rose higher than anyone imagined. To others, it's about hypocrisy, a gangster who claimed to hate informants but secretly became one. And to his enemies, his death was simple justice. His life has been immortalized in books, documentaries, and even film. Johnny Depp brought him to life in the movie Black Mass, but no Hollywood script could match the brutality of his real ending. Whitey Bulger thought he could outsmart the law. For decades, he lived as if rules were written for other men. He thought his connections, his wealth, his ruthless ability to eliminate rivals would keep him untouchable. He thought the FBI deal that gave him freedom to kill and profit was proof that he was smarter than the system. He thought he could outlive betrayal, that no matter how many lives he destroyed, no matter how many friends he turned against, he could walk away unscathed. For years, it seemed like he was right. He vanished into the world, a ghost haunting America from the shadows, living quietly by the beach in California while families of his victims mourned. For 16 years, he believed he had beaten fate. But fate doesn't forget. And in a prison cell in West Virginia, the truth caught up to him. Bulger's end wasn't peaceful. It wasn't quiet. It wasn't dignified. It was violent, bloody, merciless. The same way he had ruled Boston for decades, the same fear he inflicted on others, finally came back for him. If the king of Boston's underworld could fall this hard, what does that say about power? About loyalty? About the price of betrayal? It tells us that no empire built on fear survives. Not in the streets, not in business, not in life. Fear is temporary. Fear crumbles when the one holding it is no longer strong. And Whitey Bulger, once untouchable, once larger than life, was left slumped in a prison wheelchair, beaten until he was unrecognizable. It tells us that no man who betrays trust escapes it forever. You can lie, you can cheat, you can run. For years, you may even convince yourself you've gotten away with it. But the truth has a way of catching up. Sometimes slowly, sometimes suddenly. For Bulger, it took decades. But when the bill came, due, it was paid in blood. In the end, he died the way he lived, surrounded by violence, consumed by paranoia, and with no one left to protect him. The FBI couldn't shield him anymore. His gang was gone. His allies had turned. Even his reputation meant nothing. Behind prison walls, he was not a feared boss. He was a rat, and in that world, rats don't live long. If Whitey Bulger couldn't escape his past, maybe none of us can. His life is proof that every choice leaves a mark, every betrayal plants a seed, every sin waits in silence for its moment. He ran for decades. He hid for years, but when his past finally found him, there was no more running. But unlike him, maybe you can choose a better path. You don't need to live by fear. You don't need to betray to get ahead. You don't need to carry secrets that will one day destroy you. Whitey's life was a warning written in blood. The higher you climb on lies, the harder you fall when truth pulls you down. And that's the choice we all face. Build on fear or build on trust. Live for power or live for purpose. Chase shadows or chase light. Because if he could fall, maybe you can rise. This was Rise Untold.